one of the things I used to say was my business. And he occasionally would jab at me just to try to get me to think different. He would say, "What do you mean when you say your business?" I said, "Well, my business." He says, "But you're an employee." And I said, "But it's my business." He goes, "Well, don't you mean their business?" He really wanted me to think.
There's plenty of great employee models out there to potentially consider, but I tell them, listen, no matter where you go, make sure that this move is the only one that you're competing for your clients.
I slid the keyboard away from me and I kind of just pushed back in my chair and leaned towards her and I said, "Why are you opening this account with me right now?" And she said, "Oh, it's easy. We trust you." And that was a moment. There was no going back from that moment in time. It was just, I couldn't unhear that.
There's no more exhausting place to be than in between stay and go for multiple years. Kicking tires a little bit, like working at two places at once, one that you're at right now and employed, and then what could be on the other side. I've done it myself in another role. It's the most exhausting place you can possibly be.
I don't really know what to say, except it's been kind of a rocket ship and we've just been holding on with both hands and enjoying the ride.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Today we have Ali Rustin Passage from Tucson, Arizona, currently with Raymond James, who was previously at Edward Jones for almost 12 years. The reason I brought Ali on the podcast today, on top of just being a great personal guy, he just has a great growth story about after leaving his previous firm. I get the question all the time from financial advisors leaving an employee firm. Corey, I have all this support. I have this community I could bounce ideas off of. I have all of this structure. How am I going to grow in a different environment? And I think Ali just has a great growth story after being independent for over 2 years now that I thought would be really beneficial for any employee financial advisor considering going independent. Ali, thank you so much for hopping on today. I appreciate it.
Man, it's my pleasure, Corey. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind, before we get started, can you just tell the audience a little bit about how you got started in the career and your time at Edward Jones?
Yeah, so I was recruited like many advisors to Edward Jones. A friend of mine worked for Edward Jones, and he knew I had an interest in the business. I had been talking to a team at Merrill back right around the financial crisis, and they kind of had slowed down or stopped hiring right in the 08, 09 kind of time frame. And Edward Jones was hiring. And so after kind of jumping through some hoops, it was introduced to Edward Jones and had an opportunity. And that was actually I think I was a week shy of 13 years when we ended up leaving.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was nice. It was a good run. We had a good run.
Throughout your time at Edward Jones, what were some of the things that you really, really loved about the company?
There was a lot that I loved about being at Edward Jones. One of the things I think I hear a consistent theme about was the culture, but for me, the culture was really the people. I had a lot of friends there. I built some really great relationships. I really felt like the firm did a good job of displaying client first behavior. And I did appreciate that. And I really enjoyed the planning piece. I always saw myself as somebody that wanted to help people plan, think strategically and think through problems rather than just maybe a product. And for a while, I felt like that was a really good alignment at Jones.
So over time, being at Edward Jones for almost 13 years, what were some of the things that you kind of ran up against that maybe necessarily didn't like fit into the Edward Jones box where you opened your eyes to, potentially see what else was out there?
Yeah. So I think that my journey through my time at Edward Jones, I remember thinking distinctly, and I heard this a lot at, different functions we would do together as a firm where people would say one of my only regrets was not coming to Edward Jones sooner, right? I heard that a lot. And it's because in many ways it was so life-changing for me, right? I mean, starting in the business, having that feeling like I owned my own business, having some freedom and in ability to kind of help clients and really be able to, obviously put the clients first, but plan for them, help them work through big problems and big challenges in their lives. And so I saw Edward Jones had a lot of opportunity for me, and I felt that. I think also being in leadership was a pro and a con for me. I liked it and I enjoyed the leadership piece. And at the same time, there was a point where I kind of realized that being in leadership and kind of making it into because I'd served in a lot of different roles. I was at an area level. I'd served in many roles in the region. I kind of just started bumping into parts of Edward Jones that I didn't like. And that's when I think from like an internal perspective on leadership, I started looking around. And also, sort of separate from that, I had some pressure. So my uncle, he's one of my best friends. He's a mentor to me. We talk like every day, and he's an engineer and just like a very successful entrepreneur. And I would say things, things that I'd kind of heard around the firm. And one of the things I used to say was my business, and he occasionally would jab at me just to try to get me to think different. He would say, "What do you mean when you say your business?" I said, "Well, my business." He says, "But you're an employee." And I said, "But it's my business." He goes, "Well, don't you mean their business?" And he wasn't trying to be mean, although I think sometimes he is. He really wanted me to think and to start thinking, kind of just thinking more for myself about there's nothing wrong with being an employee. There's nothing wrong with being at Edward Jones. It was, in many ways, it was very good and very good for me. But there came a point where I started to feel, I don't know what the word is, but I started to feel like hamstrung maybe by kind of some of the limitations I was bumping into at the firm. And there was definitely a watershed moment. I mean, there were things that add up. There are a lot of things that, I went through over the years of not yeah, I guess they tack on and they build up and then you get frustrated and then but I kind of always thought, all right, I want to go, I want to be in the leadership role, I want to do these things. I did love the firm and I loved the people, but there was this summer, I want to say it was about late April, early May, and it was about a 6 week period where we got five statements from clients, all of them totaling, every client had more than 5 million in about a 6 week period. I mean, it was an incredible moment for our team. Joy, my admin, and I, we were we're just not really knowing how to handle it. A lot of excitement. It felt like like okay, we're finally here. Like people have really noticed things are starting to go well. And then over the next 6 or 8 weeks after that, we kind of proceeded to miss each opportunity, and they were looking for things. And some of them, I didn't want to just blame Edward Jones because I didn't think that was fully fair, but I did have to start asking myself, could I have successfully onboarded these clients if I had different tools? And so we get to the last meeting, and it happens to be the largest of the five or so clients, and they commit to us. The wife said she wanted to join. The husband was said, I'll come, but not right now. But anyway, we're opening the account at a table very similar to the one you see in my background. I used to have a long table, and she's sitting at the head of it, and their financial data is on some charts and screens on there. And I'm starting to just gather some of the basic data to open the account. And she said, as she's just sort of staring at the screen, she said, "Ali, you should see the technology they have at Fidelity. It's amazing." Amazing. Just like
Yeah.
there's this moment I was like, what did she just say? So I remember it was yesterday. I slid the keyboard away from me and I kind of just pushed back in my chair and leaned towards her and I said, "Why are you opening this account with me right now?" And she said, "Oh, it's easy. We trust you." And that was a moment. And I thought, okay, I at least have to see what's out there that I may or may not be missing. If it's available and it's better, then I'll know. And if it's not, then I'll know. But there was no going back from that moment in time. It was just I couldn't unhear that. And there were other things. There were other clients would say things, why aren't you independent? Or as you compete for business, people would ask, well, the other guy I'm talking to is an independent. How are you different? And you'd hear things over time, but that one was a kind of a huge moment for me.
Yeah, and that's huge. When you told me that story, I just thought that that was, the perfect example. And through my experience, I do think Edward Jones has really good technology, but on the independent side, what you gain is a ton of customability and the ability to positively affect your client experience through customability. If you don't like one CRM, there's four or five others that you can switch out that are potentially integrated to use that may be potentially better, or five or six different financial planning tools, or risk assessment tools, or marketing tools that you could kind of plug into the Jones link of your independent firm to like really build a really cool customizable experience. And I've had multiple people say it when leaving an employee firm. Like once you see that, it's really, really hard to unsee. Um, so I just,
Man, you just hit the nail on the head, Corey. I think, sort of the reasons to leave really aren't the reasons I ended up leaving. I think the reasons to leave just ended up being the reasons I wanted to start looking around.
mm,
And then when I started looking around, fear started turning to excitement because you are right. The amount of custom software that I can bolt onto my client offering here is pretty incredible. It hits really close to home for me because one of my best friends, I lovingly call him my little brother. I've known him since, I mean, he was my best friend growing up, little brother, and we've just been friends for like 30 years. And I used to have sleepovers, and the older brother would always fall asleep early. And so he and I'd play soccer or hockey in the hallways or whatever. And anyway, we've been friends for a lifetime. So he works in the tech sector. And whenever he gets new software, I'm usually a guinea pig for him. Like when he goes from one company to another, he'll call me up. And so he showed me this workflow management stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, this would be really great for our leadership teams instead of like the endless chains of emails that go along when you're planning an event at Edward Jones. And I just always got lost. And I remember talking to a partner about it in the home office, and he was like, man, I don't even know how we would get that approved, right? And the reason that kind of hit so close to home for me was, I mean, this was something that was a pain point for me. It wasn't even client facing. It was just an internal, let's plan regional meetings or events. At the time, we were doing a unique event in the area, and it was kind of just before COVID. But I remember it was kind of the firm, in my experience of the firm's culture, that I really couldn't present new things. There was no, I didn't know of a pathway to be able to get something approved. And on the flip side, I've been independent for, I think it'll be 2 years in about 4 days now. And I had a hand in, I found this AI note taker that transcribes notes in meetings for me. I brought it to the home office. I went through, they said, hey, do you want to be in the pilot and test this out? And here we are a few months later, we're almost ready to launch it, I guess. And to be able to find something that I like that isn't even on the platform and get it approved at my broker dealer, I mean, there are no words for that. It's just
yeah.
exciting.
And you're talking about Jump AI, right?
I may or may not be talking
Okay.
about. I don't
So,
know if
I
I'm.
mean, I just did a pilot of that the other day. This is what I was talking about from a technology standpoint versus an employee firm. There are just, if anyone's ever taken a look at Michael Kitz's like technology map, it gets bigger and bigger every year, but there's thousands of third-party technologies out there to better your client experience and to help you work better with your team. And I tried Jump AI the other day. I had an hour-long conversation with a financial advisor on Zoom, and it takes notes as you go. And when we were done with the conversation, I had the absolute best notes like I have ever had from any conversation ever. It had clear next steps, like incredible detail, like no typos in terms of, our miscommunications between my voice and like what I said and versus like what was down on the paper. And immediately that came out with next action items that you could send to your staff. I mean, that's probably going to save like 5 hours a week inside of my business. And the sad thing is you got that done on the independent side in, a couple weeks, a couple months. There's
Couple
some
months.
employee firms out there. that aren't going to have that for 5+ years. So always just being 5 years behind is something for, someone that's really technologically savvy, like really, really frustrating.
Well, Corey, it was a really exciting moment because again, I'm all I can say about the software I piloted was it's just like that. And yeah, so the time savings is important, but you also have to weigh the quality of the note that it generates. So yeah, you're going to save time, but to write the detail that it sort of churns out, it's going to take you hours that you just never would have invested. And I have found it to be a total game changer. I'm just thrilled that we're going to be able to get this approved for more advisors in the coming months, and I'm excited to be at a firm that has that capability because I just didn't feel like that was something that I could do when I was at Edward Jones. I certainly didn't know how to get it done, and I tried.
I love it. When you were exploring other independent firms out there, what were some of the other things that kind of blew your mind or that like you couldn't unsee after you saw it?
So my personality lends itself to being a little thorough. I looked at 7 firms, if I remember I was 6 or 7 firms, if I remember the number correctly. I wanted to get I looked at a wirehouse. I looked at going RIA, and then I looked at 3 or 4 independent shops. Like when I started kind of peeling back the onion, the software piece that we kind of touched on really was the game changer. But there was also a lot of product, that I was unfamiliar with, being that I just didn't have access to it. Private credit, uh, private placements, structured products. Having an options desk has been really, really helpful. I don't know how I didn't have access to that before, now that I have access to it. So those were some of the really big capabilities that have made kind of a major difference in our growth story. Um, I wanted to pin back on third-party software real quick onto something else.
Sure.
One of the other things that I want to mention on software was I think you mentioned CRM in there. So I did not like the CRM that I had when I got here. It works for some people. I think I was looking for something different. And so I would say within the first couple of months, I started looking around at different CRMs and talked to my partners about it. And fundamentally, we made a decision to move into a different direction with a CRM called Wealthbox, and we absolutely love it. It was a lot of process. I appreciate the team. They did a really good job of sort of shifting and moving into that direction, but it also was a complete game changer. Sort of the depth of the software can go into documenting things for our clients. The integrations, Wealthbox acts almost like a third-party hub for all of our integrated software, and it's approved here at Raymond James, which really I was really grateful to find that out, and the integrations continue to improve. But that was the moment I started to have like an aha light bulb about how to interact with my broker dealer. So it isn't just what they give me, it's what they give me that I can also integrate with what I want to serve my clients. And I think we've sent so many clients back to Wealthbox that I just did my first podcast with Wealthbox not that
Oh,
long ago.
nice.
They asked me to do a little testimonial video for them, and I just was super excited. I was like, absolutely. So I don't think I'd ever felt that excited about using a product before, but it made my life so much easier. And just being able to find and source solutions to client needs, or if you get a really big case and there's some special software that you need to go get to help with that, you can go get it. It's just a subscription. And so that level of independence and freedom was something that I undervalued or underestimated because I just didn't know how to think before.
Hey, breaking in real quick. I really hope you're enjoying this episode and finding my YouTube channel of value. If you're a high performing financial advisor that can use somebody as a guide or a resource to explore all your transition options out there in the marketplace, I'm a non-biased, independent transition consultant that can help make this process so much easier for you. And another plus It costs absolutely nothing to work with me. If you want to have a conversation, please feel free to text, call, email, DM me. My contact information is all over this episode, and I'll let you get back to it. So you were talking about, your growth story and what's contributed to your growth. Can you just talk about, where you were prior to leaving Edward Jones, where you are now and what you think led to that in such a short time period?
Yeah, this, well, I could tell you is I was really scared.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
then
bet.
after making the move, so I think I said this earlier, but one of my biggest regrets was not starting at Edward Jones sooner. And then now I've kind of said, now I just regret that I didn't leave sooner. But for me, we were about 116 million when we left, and we were doing about 736,000 in T12. And so, the first few months was mostly just onboarding, and it was pretty wild. But very quickly, the excitement of what I had to offer kind of hit, and we kind of just took off from there. And so, fiscal 24 was our best new asset year ever. We brought in almost 80 million outside of our outside of excluding any clients that we had from Jones. That was just new money. I'd never grown like that. I've always grown pretty steadily, but that was 3 or 4 times bigger than any year I'd had at Edward Jones. And so I think as of right now, we're sitting at about 230 million for just my team. And T12, I think we just crossed 1.45 in T12 in January. So hoping to cross 1.5 here in the next month. And it's I don't really know what to say except it's been kind of a rocket ship, and we've just been holding on with both hands and enjoying the ride.
That's incredible. So, I mean, if you do a deep dive into that, I mean, where do you think? I know you said you don't like really know where that like growth came from, but like, is it just you being like super energized and like excited to come to work every single day? Is it through marketing efforts? Is it through having, just deeper conversations with clients? I mean, what do you think?
Yes, I agree with everything except the marketing. We've done no marketing.
Okay.
I Part of why I came here was I wanted to do marketing. I wanted to start doing podcasts. I wanted to customize my website. And then the growth happened, and we just haven't had, so that stuff sort of just went by the wayside. I think that if I could point to one thing that I've heard over and over and over again is clients have loved how excited I am. And I can pin back to a moment. So I want to say it was the 22nd or 23rd of February that we right around the 22nd or 3rd of February of 2023 when we went independent. And it was a whirlwind of a week. But I get home on I then would say it was Saturday. So 4 or 5 days after we went independent, it was the first Saturday, and it was my birthday. So I just turned 40, 42. I come home, and my son, who's studying business at the University of Arizona, came home that night to just see me for a few hours, and they family wanted to get together and sing me happy birthday. And I'm getting home at Saturday at 8 o'clock at night, and I bump into him in the garage, and he just gives me this big hug, and he's like, "How's it going?" And I guess I was just telling him like how it was going, and was so excited, and he just said, "Dad." I mean, I get real emotional talking about this because I don't know. It was a moment, but he said, "Dad, I just want you to know how proud I am of you." He said, I can't imagine the courage it takes to walk away from a job where you're super successful at it and take a big chance and go do something like this." He said, but I want you to know you've inspired me to take big chances too."
That's
And
awesome.
and then he said, "I haven't seen you this excited in years." He said, you something's been missing. And he said it was like a spark that maybe just wasn't there. And and he said, "I want you to know it's back. I just haven't seen you like this." And honestly, that moment, I mean, obviously, I got a little misty talking to my 21-year-old
Yeah.
well, he's 21 now, but I think he was 19 or 20 at the time, but he's always been a bit wise for his years. I just I didn't know how to process that in that moment, but he was right. I think just I've been really excited. I'm excited about all the software. I'm excited about the solutions that we have. I'm excited to be able to find new things. And I think that excitement coupled with the technology and the offerings, we own a bank.
Yeah.
We have a FDIC insured savings account to $50 million. It's the amount of solutions that I have. And so I kind of melded all that together and it was like a perfect storm for me. And also pin back to what I had said earlier that we were getting big referrals when I was at Edward Jones, but I wasn't closing them. And I had a suspicion that some of that had to do with maybe where I was at. And for me, the evidence was pretty clear that once we got here and we got those same kind of big referrals that we'd been getting, onboarding them was just a much easier process. And I didn't feel like I had to try to fit the client to the firm. The firm could kind of wrap around the client.
I love that. And what you said about your son is probably like my favorite thing I've heard on this podcast. Like, what an awesome lesson that you taught him, to be able to just like take risks and not live by fear. There's just so many financial advisors out there that I speak to that know they're not at their long-term place and they are just stuck because of fear. Whether it's there's just so many misconceptions out there that you need a brand, that you're not going to bring your business with you, that by the time that you run a business on top of taking care of your clients, you're not going to have time to grow. All of these different things. That hold people back. So those are the exact things that people need to hear so thank you for saying that as well. And in terms of the energy as well, I saw that myself. I mean, I used to recruit captively for some, pretty big box independent broker dealer firms as well. And when there's something that you want to do, everyone's heard the saying kind of culture of no. Every time that you want to do something that's like right for an advisor, or in your case, a client, and you hear no, that's just another like 1 pound weight just being wrapped around your ankles every single day and just sucking energy out of you. And, people always ask me why financial advisors grow when they make a move. All the things that you talked about, the technology, the tools, the resources are awesome, but also just getting a breath of fresh air and starting over new. There's
Yeah.
a lot to be said about that. And people noticed in my voice immediately from me making the move. Someone said to me, they said, Corey, I don't even need to know anymore. I know that you moved to the right place. Like you just have this spark in you again. So I really think that's one of the biggest parts of it, just starting over fresh.
Well, it really is. You said that, I guess the only thing I might say is you said that I teach my kids, and I really think my kids teach me things.
Nice.
I don't think I think about things until sometimes they say them back.
Yeah.
But it's just genuine, man. I'm really grateful for my time at Jones. I obviously I got started and I wanted to stay there. I did. I loved it in a lot of ways. But after time, I guess the way to say it is the no's that you're talking about. The no's, they do wear on you. They pile up, and everyone's got their own reasons, and there's a lot of reasons. Still get a lot of phone calls from people that are scared and in the seat. Get regular phone calls from my buddies at Jones. Some of them are kicking tires, some of them are more seriously still looking around, and you just listen because I think that there's there's a saying, what is the devil you know?
Pleasure.
And you know how to log in, you know where everything is, you know who to talk to, and it isn't perfect, and it nowhere is perfect. I can tell you after looking at 7 firms, it was sort of that also made it harder in some ways. Because there were things I liked at all the different firms, and including Edward Jones. I mean, one of the things I really liked about being at Jones was sort of the simplicity, right? I didn't have to think about other things. I could just kind of do. It was I still think of it kind of as an easy button in a lot of ways. And I did appreciate and enjoy that. but I was giving up a lot.
Sure.
And if there's any one thing that I can pin to that I was giving up was my spark. Because I feel like since I've gotten here, I've been reinvigorated, and it was a slog. I mean, the first 6 months we worked every day for it was 6 days a week for 10, 12 hours a day, it felt like. But I don't really remember feeling, I mean, I know I was exhausted, but I also don't remember feeling it that way. Like if you told me I had to do it that way again, I would cry. I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I appreciate about being at Raymond James Financial Services is, I own my book today. That was something that was really, really important to me. And having my uncle kind of poke at me most of my career, and I wanted to be an actual owner. And I love Raymond James today. They've got strengths, they've got challenges, they've got opportunities. They kind of aren't shy about them, which I really appreciate. So that being said, if something didn't work out, I don't have any fear. This is my building. These are my phone numbers. These are my computers. So I wouldn't have the amount of change on the client if we decided that, okay, I don't know, many years from now, God forbid, I have to make a move. Corey, I got to make a move. What are we going to do? But I um I can just say that the fear of clients coming with me isn't there anymore. I
Yeah.
mean, no one's going to kick me out of my office. We just have to change some stuff around, but it's mine. And I just would much rather be an owner.
I love it. I always tell financial advisors they always consider different options. There's plenty of great employee models out there to potentially consider, but I tell them, listen, no matter, where you go, make sure that this move is the only one that you're competing for your clients. Make sure that if you're going to go through all this effort and this risk and have all of this disruption in your headspace, like make sure that your clients are with you because of you and they're going to move anywhere else that you go. So,
I think that's an interesting point of, talking to you specifically, but I think so one of the things I liked about Raymond James was whether you were an employee or an independent, they had the same kind of advisor bill of rights. I remember seeing that on the wall somewhere, if I remember that correctly. And advisor bill of rights, you have the right to own your own book.
yeah.
That's employee or advisor. And that excited me. So, I did feel some fear. I just candidly, I'd seen things. I actually have this. I don't know if this happened right when I got to Jones or right after I got there, but it was right around when I was hired. I distinctly remember. I guess word had gotten out that this advisor was looking to make a move. I don't remember how it got to leadership, but leadership locked him out of his office on just like a random Wednesday or something. And that was kind of like an early wake up call when I got there that I didn't really heed right away, but it definitely went into the old memory bank. And after years of things, I started to realize I could be locked out of my office. I mean, I never had a compliance issue in my life. I never, I just, but I don't know. I didn't want to cross the street the wrong way one day and run into a problem and suddenly or, in this case, get found out that maybe I'm just looking around, even if I wasn't going to move. I was terrified looking around because I had seen that and I didn't want something like that to happen to me.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And at many, many firms, I've seen 20-year, 25-year people, make a small mishap and then all of a sudden, they're fired, they're fighting for their reputation, they're fighting for their clients and, wind up bringing a small fraction with them of what they did because they were just so caught off foot. Where I heard another advisor say one time on the independent side, he had 300 clients and he said, Corey, in order for me to get fired, like 300 of my clients would have to fire me, which is pretty powerful.
That, that's where we're at today. I actually only have, I think, 170 relationships. I think that's something else that I maybe should mention or would be worth talking about. You know, I think I had in that 116 that we had at Jones, I think I had like 245 or 255 relationships or something like that. So our relationship size has been cut almost in half, right? So we have half the relationships and almost twice the assets. And it was, I've heard people talk about it kind of like doing a good night that you don't get to pick.
Yeah.
I think couple of real painful things to go through is, you make those first phone calls, and I was sort of surprised. Our recruiter, I've actually become really good friends with also our Raymond James recruiter as well. His name's Ed. And it's kind of funny. I remember just over the years of hearing things at Edward Jones where these recruiters don't care about you. And some maybe don't. I don't know. But my experience with Ed was we've actually just become friends over the last couple of years. And he doesn't even really cover our territory anymore, but we can't seem to stop texting each other about basketball. And I just found that random because like we didn't try, we just became buds and it just hung out and stuck. But he told me something. He said, Ali, you're going to have some surprises along the way. And he said, there's always going to be a client or two that in your heart you think are probably coming with you. And there's going to be a client or two in your heart that you think aren't coming with you. And I remember like thinking as I was making these calls, like, I remember this one lady in particular. I thought she didn't like me. I just had a feeling that there's no way she was coming. And I made a phone call and I read the script thingy and she just said, "Oh, I'm so happy to hear this." And she told me a story about how she used to be in medical consulting and she basically did the same thing. And she was so excited that I made the move. And on the flip side, I had a client who it broke my heart when they didn't come. I mean, we were friends and we really, he just took it personal that we didn't tell him. And he got upset. And I've seen him at the Apple store. It was very friendly since, but I never called him again. I just thought, he made his choice and I made mine, and I wish them nothing but the best. But there are surprises along the way. You'd be surprised, but by and large, it went how I thought it would go.
What were what were some of the surprises on the independent side that were maybe harder than you thought? Freedom comes with a price, right?
Yep.
And what are some of the things like a year in, 2 years in that you're kind of, struggling with? You've obviously had immense success, but I'm sure there's some, some frustrations as well. Can you give some downsides?
Yeah. I don't know that I can give downsides to being independent. I don't really genuinely in the seat I'm sitting in today, I don't feel that. Like that's not true for me per se, but there are challenges. I mean, like I said, the first thing is I knew how to get stuff done at Edward Jones, and I got here, and departments are called different things, and figuring out who's where, figuring out how to run payroll was really challenging. Just annoying is more to the word.
Sure.
Health insurance. We ended up using a PEO that we're really happy with now, but that took a little time to get there.
Yeah.
And the research we had to do, and my partners have really been very helpful with that. But just figuring everything out here, where it is, how to do it, the nuances that Raymond James has, because things are different. You know, the process is different. And some things I liked at Edward Jones. I mean, I really thought at least the account opening process at Edward Jones, like, once you had everything in the system, that I loved that. I thought they did a really good job there. Raymond James has upgraded a lot of the things that I had a pain point with in my transition since we've been here, which is kind of funny because the things that used to bug me 2 years ago don't exist today. But the onboarding of clients and the volume of work that it took from the team and I was really hard. One thing I don't like at my broker dealer is I wish they did a better job in integrated forms. They're getting there, but they still have things that require forms sometimes. And I'm like, it's 2025, guys. Like, I can open an account on my phone with my face.
Yeah.
maybe we
Yeah.
should maybe we should change some of this. And I know they know. I don't want to give them too hard of a time, but it's a fact. It's like, come on, guys. But that freedom to just be able to be honest. Because I think that when I got mad or I got upset about things, I have no fear just talking to anybody in leadership. And that is really priceless.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I work with people from employee firms all the time. They're going independent. And even with the recruiters, they're scared to kind of like bring up a frustration or, ask for like something additional. And I just have to remind them through the mindset that like you're not an employee of a firm anymore. Like you're the client. Like if you're unhappy, you can air your grievances and they're going to listen to you and try to make a change. It's these firms are on the interview right now to attract you over to their firm, not the other way around. So it's a really big mind shift for a lot of advisors going from the corporate world and being an employee versus being a client.
Well, you hit something on the head there. So we as a team had a little almost fell the other way a little too hard for the first 6 months. I felt like we were almost too vocal.
Yeah.
No one said anything, but we were not shy maybe the first 6, 7 months about when we'd find things and say, this is dumb. And why do you do it this way? What's wrong with you? And after a while, I remember talking to one of our partners in Phoenix, and he goes, hey, man, you can say whatever you want here, but sometimes you'll get further with honey instead of vinegar.
Yeah.
But I think it was just, I appreciated him saying that to me, but I was in kind of a bad mood that day. But one of the things I'd realized was I had maybe been really not speaking my truth all the time. And I didn't want to be labeled as a complainer, or I just didn't want to. I'd seen people labeled in my old region. I didn't want that for me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think I withheld things maybe to my own detriment. And maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe that's my fault. But the reality is once I got here, I think I just let everything go. And then I found kind of a happy medium now where but it's a pretty cool place. We went to the first national conference right after we got here. It was like 2.5, 3 months after we got here, and we bump into Tom James, the founder and billionaire guy, and he just puts on his jeans like anybody else, super mellow. We bumped into him at Universal Studios. So there were like 5, 6 of us taking pictures with him, and my wife just jumps in and photobombs us. And we're like, and he just had a great attitude about it, but he's really, really nice guy. Also bumped into him and the CEO in the home office in the hallway. So I did a bio visit with a client, and we walk in from, I think, the north end of the building, and they walk in through the south end of the building, and it's Paul Riley and Tom James and my client and I. And we just start talking about football, and we hang out in the hallway, and it was like he'd known me for 20 years. And my client was just blown away at how mellow and how easy that was. And I think, culture exists here too. And I heard I think the thing about culture on the independent side is it's just with the people that we want to be friends with, and we create the culture here. And there are just endless resources here. I'm in two different groups here at Raymond James where there's probably 60 advisors between the two groups, and we're always constantly sharing ideas. And the flow of the ideas is different too, because there's no agenda. Like not one of us is jockeying to go and get more shares in Raymond James, right? It's just we're just there because we want to help each other grow. And that's something that I didn't really anticipate or expect. I definitely thought this would be more of alone versus more I'm independent, but I'm definitely not alone.
I love that. I mean, I think a lot of people are scared to lose that community. It's community that's not forced upon you. Instead of being forced into meetings where maybe you only like, respect, have the same values as, maybe like 10 people in a group and the other, 30 you don't really like or respect. it's a group of people that you can go out and seek, like you said, that you really enjoy being around, that fill your cup, for lack of a better word. Um, you just
For
got to go
me,
out
I
and
have
find it.
well, and for me, I've made more genuine friendships and connections on this side of the fence because, again, I don't have nobody has a motive. It's just, do you want to be my friend? You like being independent too? Let's talk. Let's idea share. I mean, that's how we learn about different software. I tried a CRM. One of my partners found another bit of software. Another team we know found some planning software that we like. That collaboration across different branches and how they run their businesses and serve their clients, it is really upped the level that our clients are feeling. And the consistent feedback that I'm getting from clients, like 2 years in now, from the clients that followed us is, wow, we're really excited that you made this move. Raymond James has features in its website that I didn't really appreciate or until I was here for a while, but the vault, clients love that. Being able to store their documents in a central place, having an understanding and a planning level that we're really going to now was also something that we didn't have. So community mixed with freedom, it's a powerful, powerful process here, powerful place to be.
I love it. What's your advice to an advisor that's thinking about starting their due diligence and trying to figure out, like, should I stay or should I go?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one because I have to say that, Edward Jones is really great for some advisors. I think there are some advisors who that's the right place and you should stay there. But I think when there is doubt, there is no doubt. That's my humble opinion. I think if you're questioning, you should go look. Because you're going to see things and I've had some friends that are at Jones that looked and decided it wasn't for them. And they decided for now or maybe even forever to stay. And that's awesome. I commend that because you did a due diligence, you looked into it. Maybe it was more than you wanted right now or more than you could handle, or you just like it at Jones. And there's nothing wrong with that or whatever firm you're at, right? But if you're in the seat and you're asking yourself, could I do it differently? Or could I do this better? Or would I be happier on the other side? I can say from my experience, the answer to all those questions was yes. Unequivocally, the proof was in the pudding for us. We just transformed our business and our client relationships in the last 2 years.
I love it. I love it. I would just tell financial advisors doing this over 1,000 times. If you have that doubt, like Ali said, just take a look to see what else is out there. There's no more exhausting place to be than in between stay and go for multiple years. Like Ali, you were saying earlier in the process, there's people that are out there and, like, kicking tires a little bit, like working at two places at once. One that you're at right now and employed, and then what could be on the other side. I've done it myself in another role. It's the most exhausting place you can possibly be. Either, what I do through my process, it's not convince you to stay or leave. It's to get you the accurate information and point you in the right direction of the right firms that are going to best likelihood complement what you're trying to do. So you can make that decision yourself, stay or go. There's plenty of people that work with me that wind up staying, but go through the process entirely so you could put your head down at night on your pillow and know that, you're either doing one or the other, and you're not stuck in purgatory.
Man, that's so right though, Corey, because I guess what I'll say about that is when I first got here, I like to paint the image of me standing in the corner with a pitchfork and telling everybody, get back. I think I had so much corporate trauma or whatever the word was. I didn't trust anybody when I got here. I
Yeah.
kept looking for the gotcha. I kept looking for where they were going to stick the dagger in my side or aha, right? And after, I don't know, X number of months, you know what I found was that there's some really great people that work at Raymond James. There are some people that I don't like as much. There are some people when I call the home office that I just wish they answered the phone a little nicer. But by and large, 90% of my interaction with the Raymond James home office plus is as advertised or better. Most people, most people that I deal with here are great. And what I started to realize was that my old firm wasn't the only place that talked about and actually put the client first. That most places that you work at, most people show up wanting to do the right thing, wanting to do right by the clients. Not every company that has 50,000 people at it's going to have some jackasses, whatever the right word is. But fundamentally, I didn't really anticipate that it'd be just great in a lot of ways. Again, there are things you run into. If I get somebody on the home office that I don't like, I just hang up and call back.
I love it.
It's going to happen no matter what, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think any firm that's got scope and scale. So yeah.
And feel free to give me your honest answer on this question. But if you can do it over again, you said you searched 9 firms. Would you work with someone like me throughout the process versus doing it all on your own?
Well, 100% Corey. I mean, not just someone like you. I mean, I've already made my decision that if we ever made another move, you're my phone call. That's what's going to happen. I mean, you know, the the facts are I didn't know what I didn't know. And I mean, as a trusted advisor, one of the things that I talk to my clients about is they delegate and they hire someone like me to help them who's helped other clients through similar processes. Why would I want to do it on my own again when I could have someone who's done it 1,000 times help me? It's a no-brainer.
I totally I totally agree. Obviously, it's just there's so many opportunities out there, hundreds of different opportunities. They're all calling your office. It's their job to highlight all of the benefits of these different firms, but it's your job as an advisor that has potentially never made a move before or has made 1 or 2 moves before in your career to figure out where all the downsides, like red flags and skeletons in the closet are. And along the way, just doing this over 1,000 times, we've helped so many financial advisors not only point the right direction to the firms that have the most benefit, but just help them understand some of the potential, downsides down the road that they should be thinking about 5, 10, 15 years down the road as well. And it costs nothing to work with us, which is the biggest benefit of it. You have someone that's, helped over 1,000 advisors by your side this whole time, helping you ask the right questions, negotiating on your behalf to help you make the right decision and leverage your time, which is so limited on top of being an advisor full time, as best as possible. So, if anyone has any questions, I have over 155 other videos on my podcast just like this, just to get you real, candid, honest information about what life is like on the other side. And if you're ever ready to have a conversation, my contact information is all over my YouTube page, my website, my podcast as well. And I really hope we could talk soon. But Ali, I really appreciate the time, the candidness. Congratulations on all the growth. So awesome. I'm a golf nut, so I'm gonna be knocking on your door next time I'm in Arizona. So
You're right. I'm expecting you, buddy. We'll go happy hour. I've got 3 great restaurants and 2 really good golf courses, almost within, actually, La Paloma's within walking distance. You go walk out my office and in 30, 40 yards, you'll be on the green. So
I love it.
look forward to doing some chip shots with you in the evening.
I love it. Thank you so much for the time. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.